Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
I'd like to welcome back to the program. We have Fort Smith attorney Mr. Joey McCutchen joins us again. Joey, thanks for coming back on, sir.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on, Paul.
Yes, sir. I previewed this segment last hour, and I said that you're basically like the law enforcement for Freedom of Information Acts here in Arkansas. And then I even said, look, we've got the best Freedom of Information Act in the country, or one of them anyway. You agree with that?
I do, Paul, but the problem is, as you saw in the last legislative session, that there were numerous bill after bill after bill that were attempts to dismantle the Freedom of Information Act. And as we both know, government's too powerful, and the Freedom of Information Act is just one vehicle to hold government accountable. And it's so important that we've got to fight for it. We've got to fight for it at the legislature, and we have to enforce our rights in the public, and we have to hold governing bodies accountable.
Well, and you've certainly done that. Most recent headline, I think, the city of Fort Smith, right? You've been involved, or you're involved in a lawsuit because they're trying to do the business of the city in secret via email. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've seen that in a couple of different ways in Fort Smith. A lawsuit that we just completed was against the Fort Smith School Board, who through an open meetings request, or through a open records request, I requested documents and saw that there were email chains that were being circulated in which they were electing their officers in a secret email chain with no notice to the public. Subsequently, after months of fighting, and frankly after the school board fought this to the bitter end and ended up paying their lawyer thousands upon thousands of dollars, which was another waste of taxpayer money, the judge granted a summary judgment in the people's favor and said that the Fort Smith School Board in fact held a meeting, had violated FOIA, and enjoined them from ever doing it again. But what you were referring to is another suit that Bruce Wade, who's a Fort Smith citizen, has recently filed. I filed on his behalf, in which the same type of conduct was occurring by the city of Fort Smith by city council folks. And they were conducting business, having discussions, and taking votes regarding business that was likely to come before the city board.
And so they do that on government emails, or do they use maybe a private email to do it? I mean, how do you go about something like that?
Yeah, well, the Fort Smith School Board was, they have email addresses, and they include everyone on the chain, and they just have their discussions. I mean, and I suspect this is going on all over the state. It's kind of like, it's no different than going down to the local McDonald's or a local restaurant and the group getting together in back and just doing their business back there. In this context, it just occurs on an email chain. Wow,
that's exactly right. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, come on down to Mickey's Diner, and we're going to get the real business of the people done. So that's interesting. We're talking with Joey McCutchen. He is a attorney in the great city of Fort Smith. So give us an update on the ecclesia. Now, I mean, I know folks are aware of this, but I'll just kind of give you a reminder. You have Ecclesia College that is in this indictment, involved in this indictment with that, of former state representative Mike Neal, John Woods. And, they're taking this GIF money, and, of course, the indictment alleges that it was laundered through a consulting firm and everything else. It's real messy, and it illustrates just a ton of stuff, just a ton of problems with general improvement funds and everything else. But you are a part of a suit that says, look, because they are a private college, but because they took government money, taxpayer money, they now have to comply with Freedom of Information Act, right?
Sure. I mean, if they're going to take literally hundreds of thousands, I think it was between $600,000 and $700,000 of taxpayer money, then they should be accountable. Again, it's about accountability. But the the ironic thing is that Ecclesia has been represented in the past by Representative Bob Ballinger. And at the same time that he is taking legislative dollars and funneling them through this gift money to the college. So you see all these entanglements where you've got government giving money to a private college. I mean, look, these gift funds were meant to benefit local public organizations, is my understanding. And you've got to ask yourself the question, why are a group of legislators giving money to a private college? And the ironic thing is when we filed this suit, all we were asking for was just give us the documents. We just want to see the documents. And they have fought tooth and nail. They've tried to have the case dismissed twice now. First case they tried to have the first time they tried to have it dismissed, they said that we didn't have our hearing within 7 days. I mean, it was pretty clear that statute was designed to make government produce records quickly, yet they were trying to argue that the case should be dismissed because we hadn't had a hearing within 7 days. The most recent dismissal, which was bizarre, again, when you're digging yourself a hole, you need to stop digging. But they claim that this college is not really a college, it's a church. They actually say it's a church. So now they're in violation of Article 2, Section 24 of the Arkansas Constitution. And we've asked that we've amended our complaint and asked the court to find that there was an illegal exaction and the taxpayers should get that money back.
Yeah, that's a good question. So you're saying if they are a church, if they're now claiming to be a church, then taxpayer money doesn't need to be going to support that. Is that what you're saying?
In effect, yeah, that's right, because it violates our Arkansas Constitution.
Wow, yeah.
Specifically our Arkansas, like states across this nation, if you'll look up the constitutions of our states, you'll see that in every constitution they put their articles of declaration first. And in essence, what that is the Bill of Rights in our state constitution, and it's right up at the front. Paul, and I just can't say. I mean, that's where our freedom is. Mm-hmm. And if we start compromising these articles, these Bill of Rights away, we're going down a dark path. And that's why the FOIA is so important, and every mechanism that holds government accountable. And, there's only certain ways to hold government accountable. And one of them is the ballot box, all right? The second one, as our founders knew, and every state ratification convention, when they were ratifying our Constitution, it was the right to trial by jury was number 2. That's the second way to hold government accountable. The third way is, we're going to enforce our Second Amendment rights, and that's the way we're going to hold government accountable. So, and then obviously we've talked about another mechanism which Winthrop Rockefeller in 1967 found so important, and was his crowning achievement was the Freedom of Information Act. Mm-hmm. And so in the last legislative session, we see government, i.e. legislators, trying to gut 2 out of the what I call 4, the Freedom of Information Act, which could have gone from the strongest to virtually one of the weakest if they would have got past what they wanted to pass. And secondly, what they call tort reform, that is going to, in effect, do away with the right to trial by jury that our founders envisioned.
Let's do this.
It's all about accountability.
Yeah, we're talking with Joey McCutchen from Fort Smith. He's calling. He's on the phone. We appreciate it. And we've just talked Freedom of Information Act. You just mentioned tort reform. I want to take a break, if you can stay with us during the break, Joey, and then let's come back and let's tackle this tort reform issue that we're all going to be voting on next November. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, folks, we're going to take a break. The Liberty Machine rolls on. Back in just a moment. More with Joey McCutchen.
9-9.
We're back here with Mr. Joey McCutchen. Joey is a Fort Smith attorney. He joins us now via phone. Joey, thanks for coming on once again and hanging with us through the break.
You bet. Glad to be here.
So the tort reform. Now, I'm a limited government conservative, and I like tort reform. The concept of it has been appealing to me for a while. But then when what happened down to the legislature this last session, my definition of tort reform doesn't quite match up with the definition of the establishment that has now put this on the ballot for us to vote on next election cycle. And so now we seem to be having quite a fight of the titans brewing between the nursing home industry that supports it and trial attorneys that are very much opposed to it. What are your thoughts on tort reform?
Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see that the fight is all. I see the fight being between citizens who are concerned about preserving their rights and special interests who want to take away those rights. That's the battle. Paul, this isn't about trial lawyers. Look, I mean that's what these legislators who are trying to push this out. That's the easy sell. Bash the trial lawyers and take away the people's rights. I mean, what this is about is an attempt to take away our rights. As conservatives, as most of the folks are on this show, we believe in the concept that if you break it, you fix it. Mm-hmm. But what this so-called tort reform says is it tells wrongdoers that you only have to pay a fixed part of the harm you caused. And you know what that leaves, Paul? You know who's left holding the bag? The taxpayers, because we're gonna pick up the tab for the rest of the harm, and it's as simple as that. And nursing home owners like Michael Morton, they don't care if the taxpayers pick up the rest of the tab, but you and I do, and that's exactly what will happen. And in addition, I mean, you said that tort reform is nothing more than government-mandated limits on individual rights.
Yeah.
We're always talking about how we believe in local control. I'm not sure there's anything more local than 12 citizens listening to specific facts and coming up with what's right or wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what our founders envisioned.
Yeah.
And that's why Thomas Jefferson believed so greatly in the right to trial by jury.
Yeah.
When he said, I consider the trial by jury as the only anchor yet imagined by man by which a government can hold to the principles of its Constitution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And isn't there even such a thing as, jury nullification, right?
Right. Sure.
I mean, and that's such a powerful thing. I mean, I think that's one of the checks on government is like, hey, the government might be prosecuting or doing something that's just completely unreasonable. And, 12 of your peers are like, yeah, I think they're out of line here. And that is, certainly a check on power that we need to maintain. The reason, Joey, the reason I mentioned the trial attorneys is, and look, I know it's easy to say, oh, the trial attorneys, you guys are too rich or whatever, and what this tort reform bill does, and I've taken some criticism. There was some blog post about something that I said on the radio. I just don't believe that the government should have the authority to tell anybody, regardless of whether you are an attorney or whether you're a radio host, how much they can charge for their services. And I think on the principle, I'm right in point. I would stand with the trial attorney's right to make whatever they need to make, just like I wouldn't want the government telling me, "Hell, you can't sell that radio ad for that much money. That's unfair." I mean, you agree with that, right?
Well, look at the Republican Party platform. What does it say about free market economy? I mean, it is and I agree 100% with it. So where do they go next? Now they're going to tell trial lawyers that when folks come in that we can't charge a certain percentage. Yet, I bet Michael Morton and his nursing homes, they ain't going to limit how many hours and what the fee that Michael Morton's lawyers can charge. So all they're doing is creating an unequal playing field. But the concept of free market. So where do they go next? Next, it's going to be painters. They're going to tell a painter how much he can charge folks. They're going to tell real estate brokers, well, that you can't charge that percentage. They're going to tell your show how much you. So it's a very slippery slope. SJR 8's nothing more than a Trojan horse. It's just like Issue 3. Remember Issue 3, Paul?
Yes.
Remember they sold Issue 3 as a constitutional amendment that was going to check that was ethics based. Yet when folks never read down to the bottom of it, and what did it say at the bottom of it? Oh, well, it created all these new creatures that would increase legislative pay and increase term limits, and people didn't know what they were voting for.
Yeah.
So education is key in this.
Yeah, I'm going to say, you think that's going to happen again? I mean, how? I don't have the ballot title in front of me. But I mean, how are folks going to realize? Because it's very discouraging. Thomas Jefferson also said that an educated citizenry is indispensable to the proper functioning of a republic. And so you've got the last two Issue 3s. One of them was just about jobs, but it didn't really say anywhere in there that this was going to allow the state of Arkansas to go into debt in the form of bonds, an unlimited amount. The Issue 3 before that was about setting term limits when, in fact, the real thing that it did was extend term limits. And so when the legislature puts a ballot initiative before the people, we have very recent results that show that it was just complete fraud. It was outright deception. And so, and yet everybody votes for it, overwhelmingly. So how do we combat that, Joey? How do we get people to realize, hey, you need to be very careful when you vote on these issues?
Right. I think it's just what we're doing now. We're having a discussion about the specifics about it, and I think we need to be talking in Kiwanis, and we need to be talking in Tea Party meetings, and educating folks about really what this SJR is. I mean, it's a Trojan horse. What it's doing is asking people to vote to take their own rights away. Paul, our Constitution was ratified on October 13th, 1874. That's about 142 years ago, and it was very, very stout in terms of the right when it says that the right to trial by jury shall remain inviolate. And our Constitution went a step further, and our founders put in our Constitution that no law shall be enacted limiting the amount to be recovered for injuries resulting in death or for injuries to persons or property.
Wow.
And they did that for good reason, because the railroads were running over people back in the day. And they knew how important it was to allow juries to make that decision, because if juries aren't allowed, then conduct rewarded is conduct repeated. Wow. And it makes our world an unsafe place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it, and so that's what 142 years ago, and this legislator gave the people 25 minutes.
Sorry, go ahead, Joey. Keep going.
Yeah, sorry about that. The legislature in this last session gave the people 25 minutes to make their case. Rose Mims, with the Arkansas Right to Life, was on the list to testify, and they denied her the right, her right to testify.
Yeah.
Rose was going to tell them that she thinks that this is against the right to life. This amendment sets a price tag on human life of $500,000. You kill a child, you kill a stay-at-home mom,
yeah.
You kill an elderly person in the nursing home, they put a price tag on that life of $500,000.
Joey McCutchen, Fort Smith attorney, we appreciate it, sir. Thank you for your time. We're going to do this again, and we're going to continue to get the word out, okay? Thank you so much.
Hey, that sounds good. I appreciate you, Paul.
All righty. Thank you, Joey. Folks, back in a minute.